Hello, my friends, and welcome back to RV Miles. Today's video is about suspension enhancement systems, particularly one suspension enhancement system, the Timbren SES system. And I did an install of this back in March, and we took it out on our big 8-week spring trip so I could test out how it worked when towing. So in this video, I'm going to talk about that install process, and I'm going to give you kind of a review of how it worked for me. But let me just give you an overview of what this product is. If you've clicked on this video, it's probably because you're interested in this product or something similar to it. So you might have a little bit of sense of it, but I'm just going to tell you what it is, how it works, and what some of the alternatives are. But first, I want to let you know that this video is sponsored by the folks at Timbren, so take it with a grain of salt. Watch other videos. They didn't tell me what to say. They have no input on this video at all. They let me say whatever I want here. And I think y'all trust me on that front, but I always want to let you know about it. So if you tow heavy, particularly if you tow a fifth wheel, you may run into a problem where the rear end of your truck sags. Maybe it sags a little bit more than you'd like it to sag. That's something that's pretty common. And a lot of people, particularly on the internet, will look at that as a thing that's like, well, you need a bigger truck. And I find that that's just not always the case, that actually these modern trucks sag way more than I would like them to sag. Our F350, even when towing our 9,000-pound conventional travel trailer, the one before our recent fifth wheel, it sagged significantly, more than I would like it to sag. And, you know, for most people, that's not a problem. If you're not somebody that's towing across the country, 10,000 miles a year, maybe it's not an issue for you. But it does do some things to the truck. It's not particularly unsafe that your rear end lowers. It's supposed to lower, first of all. There's a reason your truck has a rake to it. The front end is lower than the back end because the manufacturer is expecting that when you put weight in the rear end of the truck is going to level out for the most part. But there are some things that happen when the rear end of your truck lowers or sags. And for me, sagging means it's lower than level in the rear, which does cause a few problems. And some of the things that can happen are reduced steering performance, even reduced fuel mileage because of that reduced steering performance. The angle of your headlights is raising up, which can be really annoying for a lot of people, depending on where their headlights are set in the first place. And sag in your rear end can actually cause trailer sway as well. So there are several products out there on the market that attempt to solve for this, that for the people who do put a decent load in the rear of their truck, whether that's a trailer or whether that's loading it up with gravel or whatever it might be, that attempt to improve the suspension a bit. And one of the things you might have heard about is airbags, and airbags are certainly a viable option. Airbags use air in a bag is a term that not most people would use when they see what this looks like, but it's a big rubber housing that is filled with air, and that gives you a better ride when you've got a load in the bed of your truck. The problem is airbags can be expensive. They're not as easy to DIY install, and you're going to have an onboard air compressor installed. There's a lot that goes into all that sort of stuff. It's not affordable, and it's not necessarily a DIY project for a lot of people. So a different option is something like the Timbren SES system, Timbren Suspension Enhancement System, that replaces your bump stop. So your truck has springs in the rear and shocks, and the springs are really what compress when you put a load in the rear of your truck, whether that's a fifth wheel, a travel trailer, a bed of gravel, whatever it is. The springs are compressing, and when they compress too far, the bump stop, which is a piece of rubber, stops your frame from banging against your axles. And all cars have a bump stop. Trucks generally have a bit of a bigger bump stop because it's more common for the bump stop to engage. And for most people, that bump stop is going to engage when you're loaded up and then you hit a bump. You hit a bump on the road and your springs bounce and compress, and that bump stop is banging up against your axle. And that's something that causes a bit of a rough ride. So Timbren springs, they're rubber, but they are actually a rubber spring instead of a just solid piece of rubber bump stop. Helps eliminate that. So first of all, you can see it's much bigger. It's much longer than the stock bump stop. So when you replace it, it is going to engage sooner, but it is going to engage gradually because it's a progressive spring. So as soon as it engages, it's a little bit softer, and as more weight gets on it, it gets firmer and firmer and firmer. So what this does for you, if you're towing a big fifth wheel, you've got a lot of weight in the bed of your truck. When I'm hooked up to my fifth wheel, these are engaged. And it improves the ride a bit as I bounce down the road. And after driving our fifth wheel for about 500 miles without them and driving it for about 3,000 miles with them, I do see a really strong improvement of the ride, particularly when you hit bumps heading down the road. The steering feels great, the cornering feels great, everything about the ride feels a little bit better. Again, this isn't something that is required for most people, but if your trailer is within the specifications of your truck, but maybe you're close to the extents of that, like I am towing a big fifth wheel with a single rear wheel F350 truck, these can really make a solid difference. Now, I can't speak to whether they improve fuel mileage or anything like that. That's one of the claims the manufacturer makes. The main thing is I do like the improvement of the sag. And I feel like I'm putting less wear on my trailer. There are lots of ways people are improving the force that's being put on the kingpin of their fifth wheel these days. There are lots of fifth wheel hitches now that have something like this, a rubber spring inside them, or even have a metal coil spring inside them and shocks. And this isn't all that different. You're just putting the spring in a different place. So what's the install like? This was super easy. This took me about, 20 minutes to do once I had all the right tools in place, but it doesn't really take much in the way of tools. You need a couple different sockets, and it's easy to do with an impact wrench really quick. For me, really all I had to do was remove 2 nuts on either side and install the Timbren back in with the same 2 nuts. I did lift the truck. I could have not lifted the truck. And some people may need to lift the vehicle they're using. So for instance, they also make these for motorhomes. If you have a Class C motorhome in particular, a lot of Class Cs drive terribly. This could be a decent upgrade for you to help you sort of get rid of that big wobble that a lot of Class C motorhomes have. And if you are using a motorhome, Timbren says you're probably going to have contact all the time between the Timbren rubber spring and your axle. For most truck owners, you're going to have a 1/2 inch to 1.5 inch separation between the Timbren and your axle when you're driving unloaded. So that means the install is doable if you've got a gap there without lifting your truck at all. I did lift my truck to just give me a little bit more room. It was enough to make it a little bit easier, but I think it would have been a breeze without that. It just gave me a little bit more room to put my hands in. So still just removing the 2 nuts, assembling the Timbren together, putting it in, and then you're done. Now, you may have seen online, if you've been researching Timbrens, some people saying it really made the ride of my truck unloaded a lot worse. And it shouldn't do that. So I went out and tested the ride right after I installed them to see what it would be like. All right, first drive impressions. I'm purposely driving down a concrete road that I know to have lots of bumps in it. Not really quite to the bumps yet, to see if I feel any difference. So far, city street type driving right now, it's about the same. I'm not feeling any difference at all. And that's what I would hope and what I would expect with there being, sort of a 1/2 inch clearance. It's supposed to be a 1/2 inch to 1.5 inch clearance between the new bump stop and actually hitting the axle. And I'm guessing that for the most part, it's not going to hit unless I'm hitting a decent bump. And that seems to be the case. Yeah, so I've hit a couple big bumps now, and this hasn't been really much different. I mean, it's an F350. It's not the smoothest ride over heavy bumps in the first place. I'm not feeling what I used to feel in my Ram. I had a Ram that was 6 or 7 years old when we owned it, and it perhaps was due for some suspension work, and it hit hard. I mean, that thing, every bump was yeah, not feeling a difference at all. This is great. Definitely on city roads. So let me get to a really bad beat up road here. Here's a gravel road. Let's try this gravel road. See how this goes. Oh, it's gravel and washboard. Hello. Okay, let's not take the washboard that fast. Every now and then it's washboard, and I'm going 45 miles an hour, you know, fairly decent speed for gravel. And when I do hit that washboard, there's a lot of noise in the truck here because I got a lot of stuff in the truck. I'd say maybe I'm feeling it a little bit firmer than I would otherwise. Actually, I don't know, is it better? Maybe it's better over the washboard. I mean, this isn't really the test. I'm going 50 miles an hour, hitting some gentle washboarding. And I'm feeling like it's better. I should have done a test where I did this exact same drive before I put them on. Sorry, I didn't do that. But the real test is going to be towing. The goal, the hope was that my suspension would act exactly the same, not towing, and without a load in the bed. And once we have a load and we're towing, that we'll get a bit gentler of a ride for the fifth wheel itself, that will be a little bit more level. Ford squat, they squat too much. Hit the brakes hard, do a big turn down another rough gravel road. That's a rough one. There we go. Yeah, I'm still going 40 though, and this is not a big deal at all. So the ride just shouldn't be worse because your Timbrens should not be touching your axle unless you're in something like a motorhome where it's just going to because of the amount of weight that is on those axles. But when I'm driving a truck unloaded, it should not be contacting the axle. And if it is contacting the axle, you can remove the rubber spacers. There are rubber spacers there. I'm right at sort of that ½ inch mark. So I could remove those rubber spacers if it was a problem for me. And anything you have in the bed of your truck, you've got a big toolbox, you have a heavy fifth wheel hitch that's riding back there, that is going to lower your Timbrens closer to your axle. So judge it yourself and decide whether you want to have that rubber spacer in, but it was really easy to do. Now, other vehicles, I can only speak for my Ford truck, might install a little bit differently. There might be a bolt in the middle of the bump stop that has to come out and you replace the Timbren that way. There are a few different ways this is done, but for me with the F350, super simple, easy install that anyone virtually can do. It was nice to be able to lay down on a creeper to do it, but I could have even just laid on the ground and been fine with it. So overall, I'm really impressed with the increase in the ride quality towing my fifth wheel down the road. Do I think this is something that's required for everybody? Absolutely not. I think Timbrens are designed for anybody who wants a little bit of a ride improvement. You're not happy with the rake of your truck when you've got it loaded down. Perhaps you've got an older truck that you're not completely ready to replace all the springs in. Timbrens cost about $300 or so. So you compare that with airbags, which can, cost over $1,000, maybe even more, especially with install. It's a really quick and easy, affordable way to upgrade your suspension system. They've got a lifetime warranty. If you have any problems with them, say you're touching, they'll send you a new Timbren spring to get your vehicle fit perfect. Their customer support is fantastic. And some people may be trying to solve a problem here that is going to cost them thousands of dollars to upgrade their suspension or to get a newer or bigger truck. But I think at this price point, this is a good first step to try to solve the problem before you spend a heck of a lot of money. It's not going to fix the fact that you're overloaded from your rated payload. Neither are airbags, anything like that, but it will improve the ride. So check out Timbren's website. A link is in the description below, and let me know if you have any questions about Timbrens. I'll try to answer them in the comments. Thanks so much for being here. If you got something on this video, hit the like button. If you want more like it, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, everybody.